All right, so I sorted the traders by the minimum of 300 markets, a minimum volume of $1,000, and a minimum win rate of 40%. I think you can set this generally lower because in statistics or probability, you can think about sometimes losing more often than winning as long as your wins really outweigh your losses, and you can find some interesting traders like that. I put the minimum P&L to 500 just to make sure that we look at something that is interesting, that we can still emulate, but that is also still interesting in terms of losses. So I found a market making bot that I think is probably the most impressive of all of them. This trader has made about $1 million in profit so far. And what is really interesting over here is that it trades in all types of markets, but also goes in very large spreads. And it tries to even out and balances the size, but it does not always do so. It places limit orders and it wins almost in every single market except of the Ethereum market that you might see over here. So this is fairly emulatable, but it's still much larger in size. What is more interesting is this trader here that has called Tina and Louise, and he or she is fairly profitable in general. It risks a low amount of capital, and as you can see in general over the days, it wins more than it loses. And the sizes that it goes is usually fairly small, so it bets about $10 to $50 every market, but it does not go both sides. It actually always holds one size in particular. And the biggest win that it ever got was $56, but it did so about a 500, 600 times, I think, 1,200 times. This is a rule-based bot, and you can tell this by the increments and the order sizes being fairly rigid. If this was a bot that continuously makes decisions on heuristics, those numbers would be wildly different. So this bot always places bets, and interestingly onto one side. As you can see, it places $40, it wins $20. I think it just goes on the 50-50 whenever there's a good chance, and maybe it buys them on retractments, which is possible, and during swings. And we statistically have seen that one side usually is determined fairly early on and for a long time. So this also makes sense. And in some markets, it seems that it has tried to break it down into smaller and different size of orders. We can see that the biggest loss that it ever has is $50 and sometimes $20 with larger shares, but it does not really lose much more than that. What you can also see is that it tries to sell sometimes before to get out of a loss and minimize its losses. Another very interesting bot that I found is not made quite a lot of money, but it has traded really a lot. So this trader has traded about nearly $1 million in volume in 16,000 markets, about half of all the markets that have been traded so far. And it has a fairly good win rate, but it only makes very tiny amounts of money every time. But it also only spends very little. So it goes into markets when they're fairly determined, as you can tell, because on $100 it makes $2. So I'm guessing it bought it at 98 cents. And here for like $50, $1, which is the same, about 98 cents. And it does not buy both sides. So this is not an arbitrage bot.